Oh my god, he's the power looking at that.
Oh my gosh, wait. Hi, welcome to the Straight A's Talk Show. Today we will be discussing Book 4, specifically of the Aeneid. I have a couple guests with me today.
Mr. Farina.
Miss McRae.
Miss Abood.
Mr. Meehan.
And I'm Miss Gosnier. Alright, let's get started. So, I think the first question we have, it's just a general question about this whole entire book, was if nothing had been triggered by the gods, do you think any of this would have happened this way?
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting, just because it was Venus who did the spell on Dido to make her in love with Aeneas. But all the emotions that she has from that seem to me pretty natural and something that could have happened, if not at an accelerated pace. Mm-hmm. I just wonder if it would have happened anyway if they hadn't interfered.
I think they've had this plan all along. And even if Venus hadn't, cast the spell or whatever, this is the end goal that they wanted, and I think they would have gotten to it no matter what.
Right, because Juno and Venus had talked about it, and they decided that they were going to put them in a marriage pact. So it was really all of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't Aeneas and Dido didn't really have a say in it. Do you think?
I think the gods, just in general, they like the control. That's what they do. So everything that they do is because they want to have the control. They do have the control over everything. So therefore, this is all because they have the control. They want the control, and that's why they're doing it. I think that none of this would have happened if it weren't for them, because they're in control of everything.
Yeah, I agree.
It's also because they have conflicting interests, and because Mercury wants him to get out of there. Venus and Juno have different plans.
Exactly.
I think less so with Aeneas than with Dido, because Dido has this resolve at the beginning of the book. She's not interested in men. She's totally self-proclaimed woman king,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then she literally abandons all that at the flip of a switch. So I think that's definitely a god, knocking on her door.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I think that's kind of odd that she did just abandon all of her hard work. I'm not sure if it was because that she missed her old husband so much, but I do think that it was a god that had a lot of say in that.
Yeah, well, even Aeneas, he was, so gung-ho about building his empire, kind of took a break from it to go be with Aeneas for a little while. So I think, that wasn't all on his own accord.
No, it seems like his visiting, though, just made her snap, and I wonder if that's something that was waiting to happen, if she had been keeping it all in all this time, for her husband. Because she's trying to keep up a friend, trying to still be a powerful leader and take care of her people, and abandons all of that, but I wonder if it's something waiting to happen, not just created.
Yeah, I also think that just in regards to Dido and her husband, because you just brought that up, that she's honestly just looking for something to mask the pain. I think that it happens, and I think it's the will of the gods, yes, but I think also it's also her mask to mask up her pain that she has from losing her husband, and that's why I think everything is so magnified when it's between her and Aeneas. It seems like things happen so quickly, and all these emotions are happening, and I think it's for there's not one specific reason. I wouldn't call it this is fate, this is destiny, this is them falling in love, they're meant to be together. I think it's a lot of manufactured feelings.
Yeah, I think she also wants to she has hope to maybe find that same love again. She's maybe with Aeneas.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think she actually loves Aeneas himself, or is he just filling a void for her?
I was just thinking about that. So at line 770, she's going on about all these things, bad things she wants to happen to him, a shameful death. she wants him to die at sea and stuff, and that's not at any sense a true form of love. She's like craving him more than she's loving him. She's not
It
looking
becomes
for his well-being.
destructive.
Yeah, so it's not real.
And you think he sees through that? Maybe is that why he doesn't seem to love her as much as she loves him?
I don't think it's even him seeing through it as much as he just doesn't even, he's not about it. He just does what the gods say. Gods are like, do this, alright, I do this.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why it's so easy for him to leave at the end, because
Yeah.
the gods say that, but I think with Aeneas it's kind of just like, she's there, and I think it's more for him lust than love.
Yeah.
I feel it just in his perspective, maybe not for her, but for him I think it's more lust.
Because like when it says he left, it says it was because like a sense of duty, which I always think is an interesting excuse, like in any old text, because it's very common. Oh, the gods say this, I have to go. I feel like if his heart was in there, they probably might have stayed.
Yeah, it literally says, but Aeneas is driven by duty now, and in spite of all, he obeys the gods' commands. So yeah, exactly what you're saying. He knows that it's his duty to leave, and even if he does love her, that's what he has to do, because that's what the gods are taught him to do.
And on line 422-ish, he said, nor did I once extend a bridegroom's torch or enter into a marriage pact with you, which is pretty rough. Like, that's a rough thing to say to somebody, especially because earlier, around like line 220, it says she calls it a marriage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, her idea, and although that might be just like to make herself feel better so she doesn't feel guilty about whatever she did with him when they were alone, she calls it a marriage, and then he confronts that and he goes, no, this is not a marriage. Like, not once did I say I was married to you, like, not once did we enter a marriage, like, this is not that. Which would definitely show, like, that maybe he doesn't have feelings of love towards her in that sense.
I definitely agree with you, Ms. McRae, but I'm not so sure that he dislikes her. I think he's just kind of indifferent about the feelings that she's, because when he's giving his speech before he leave, or that I'm gonna leave, he doesn't ever say like, I don't love you, which you tell someone if you don't love them.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of like putting off, like, the reason I'm leaving is this. I have to go. My father is filling my heart with fear.
It sounds like he's backtracking almost, like speaking guy terms, saying, oh, I didn't realize that you thought it meant this. I didn't think that I was bound into a marriage. I mean, not that he would mind it, even, if he was allowed to stay there, but it's him trying to get out of it, and not realizing how deep into it he was.
Yeah, it seems like he's almost trying to justify his leaving by saying, we're not actually in marriage, I don't know.
Duty, the gods.
Duty and the gods, yeah.
I do think it's interesting. This is like in regards to my question. In the poem, Dido and Aeneas, he says that he's thinking he will not have a woman that night on the ship, and that's on his mind. So maybe it's more not even Dido. Maybe it's just the theoretical figure of a woman, to share a bed with. But when he was in the cave, if he didn't see it as marriage, maybe it's just because this overall picture of woman is not attachment. I don't know, maybe he's completely disattached in that sense.
No, that's a good point. I think it's a really good point. Yeah. Because that shows that he is feeling something towards her. It's not just feelings of like, it's not feelings of indifference or anything where he, it's not, I don't know how to explain, like he doesn't not love her, but at the same time,
It's
does
not
he,
her.
does he love her? But it's what there's, it's like how we
Today.
mentioned earlier, like manufactured feelings. Like, is it all just, like, is Aeneas a replacement for her husband who passed? Is she a replacement for the loneliness he feels when he's by himself? Like, is everybody satisfying but not?
I think they both just have very different, like I don't want to use the term end games. But
Yeah,
I think they
but
both have very different reasonings for this
They
kind
don't-
of relationship.
They don't have the time to like talk
Yeah.
about it or understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and she doesn't even hear his words. She like cuts him off. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, something she said. Oh, even from the start of his declaration, she had glared at him with askance, her eyes roving over him head to foot with a look of stony silence. She didn't even want to hear it. She was like,
She was
she
already
heard
ready.
rumor, and that was enough for her. She wasn't loving. She was just angry.
Yeah, I think they were both filling a void, like maybe even him for Creusa with Dido filling that void, and she was filling the void of her lost husband with him. They just did it in different ways.
But
Like this.
interestingly enough, would you think that maybe the idea of like filling voids for each other was also something that the gods had in mind
Yeah,
when thinking of both of them? Like maybe it was like this was like the ultimate, like the motive for them. Okay, like they both have these voids. Like
they're all
here they are,
right
here they are, because
there.
the gods do that. The gods always
Yeah.
try
Yeah, maybe Venus just did it without the regard for Zeus's will, and
It's not the
Mhm.
first time she's done that.
yeah,
to. So
Yeah,
it could honestly have been like they knew that this wasn't
playing with you.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it was a type of, it was almost like a friendship of utility, like
Mhm.
to speak like Aristotle, like that honestly is kind of what almost their purpose was for each other. It was a
Yeah.
utility
Yeah.
type of relationship.
Plus, it's her son. Aeneas is her son, and she's just doing this for him randomly without telling him.
Mm-hmm.
To well,
Yeah,
like-
Exactly.
she's very.
Mothers know best, right?
Apparently not though, since
Yeah.
well. But yeah, like you said, Venus has done this before. She did the exact same thing with Helen in Paris,
Mm-hmm.
and that didn't
So that
exactly turn
Helen-
out as well either. So are the gods just kind of like going along without any regard for consequences? Do you think they're just kind of playing it by ear, or do they think that there actually is a plan?
I feel like there's always a plan.
Mhm.
But at the same time, half of the stuff that happens, you're like, oh my god, like, did you not?
I feel like they all
This is not,
sideways.
you know?
Yeah, or they all have one
Like an
engine,
agenda.
but they like.
Oh, good. You should go to Italy to do this. But, oh, you should check out her. Check out this. Do
I
this.
think
Go down to the
honestly,
world.
I mean this is good, but as long as their people are tipping their glasses of wine to the gods, I feel like they're just like, all right, like you know, it's like
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like almost like a game.
you're
for
gonna
them.
die soon anyway. I'm immortal.
Yeah, like they have a goal in mind, but they're like, why not mess with this? Or let's just see what happens when this happens, you know?
I find it impossible that Venus didn't realize that could what ended up happening to Dido happened.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying.
It's
But
like-
they
pretty
want
tragic.
that.
Like, she
But they
can't
want
be
that to
that
happen.
oblivious. To
Exactly.
But like, why would she want that to happen?
Exactly. Why would you want that
drive
to
her to
be the result of something that you did? I don't. So I don't know if it's just blatant disregard or if it's just.
The only thing I could have thought was that so she could be reunited with her husband in the underworld. That's the only reason I could think that why Venus would want Dido to kill herself is to be reunited with her husband, and like that's actually the only thing.
I
that
feel like there's a lot
She's
that went into
gotten
that.
There's
Yeah,
gotta
but
be an
there's, like,
easier
a
way
lot.
for her to die.
That's I mean,
Like
she
if they
could
wanted
just
her to
hurt
die, exactly, they went through all of this just to
That's
have
That's
her
so
kill herself.
yes, that's
For
so
all-
weird though because that kind of would just explain like it's everything happens for a reason, like the whole
Yeah.
idea of fate, because it's like, okay, like maybe Dido like fulfilled that whatever void that Aeneas has, like whatever loneliness, whatever lust Aeneas had, she fulfilled that, and for the time being, Aeneas fulfilled that void of like not having a husband for Dido, but because Aeneas like he didn't need the long term of Dido, he didn't need that, so he went off and he fulfilled his duty,
Mhm.
whatever. But then Dido didn't need. Dido needed that,
Mhm.
therefore that's why she killed
Yeah,
herself. Therefore, her
maybe-
fate was maybe to die. Who?
Yeah.
I
Who knows?
agree with you, and I think maybe the reason that Aeneas was the counterpart to that is because in this poem it's revealing that his heart is kind of hardened right now, and he's like, there will be no room for weakness in my city, and there'll be no, you'll have to be courageous. There's no cowards or anything.
Mhm.
So I think maybe that's part of the reason that he had to enter into that was because he had to get his heart hardened in order that in the new land he would be kind of ruthless in the beginning so that his
Like the
founding of the city would
Yeah.
actually happen.
Yeah.
And when he says weakness, I think he does, I think he does mean love. He sees it
Yeah.
as a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when he says there'll be no room for pity or weakness of any kind, he means love.
Yeah, he's
also.
almost like intolerant, which we haven't seen too much. We've seen in small glances because he's like a human, but like
Well, 'cause
in this sense, he's showing like an intolerance towards.
Yeah.
even
all
his
those
first wife, like the way it shows that she ends up, he does not specific how she goes. It seems like he just lost track of her because he had other things to do.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, he was all ready to flee Troy
Yeah.
and
But he had
got
his
on
son,
the ship and
which I think is important because they talk a lot about his son, and he really does love his son.
Yeah.
So would you
Yeah.
consider his love for his son a weakness, even though he's doing a lot of this for
So-
his son?
I didn't even think about twofold. Like 2 times he placed the will of the gods before the woman, because when he left Troy, if he was a man filled with love, he would have been trying to find his wife.
Yeah.
But he still was like, all right, I know I have to take my son's throne, so
Yeah.
I'll just do it. I don't know where she is.
He doesn't ever speak of her again after he tells the story. You don't
Yeah,
hear
does he
anything.
even?
When he goes
Was there
to
an
the-
opportunity when he told Dido? I don't even know if
I
he
don't
talked
think he
to
even told her about her. Yeah.
Well, like he said in the story when you recapped, but like,
Oh, well, yeah, yeah.
again, it didn't
Yeah.
say much at all. But,
Yeah.
no, I think that her killing herself in the end was something that could have happened, but it needed like prodding for it to happen. Because when you first see her, she doesn't strike you like the type of person who will just break down over a guy. She seems like
Very
she.
strong-willed.
Yeah, and it's very apparent through that. That's why I think it's weird that she's brought to that point, and I feel like it's just hidden there,
Yeah.
somewhere deep,
Yeah.
somewhere that it probably wouldn't have happened or not for a long time, but it's there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like it was kind of a long time coming for her. She was like in a lot of pain, especially with her first husband, but then she kind of, I think, masked that pain with the building of Carthage. And then once Aeneas came along, it kind of resurfaced all of that pain again. So yeah, let's move on and talk about Aeneas more than Dido. Is he relying on the gods to kind of make his decisions for him, or is he like being lazy? What do you guys think about that?
I kind of feel like that's all he knows. He only knows that God's making decisions. I'm sure. I mean, he's a dutiful man who is very loyal and does what he's told. But and I'm sure that he could be independent without the gods. But I think that he only knows the gods being like, hey, do this. Hey, leave for this. Hey, find this. Do this. Da da da. And like he is only used to that. So that's why he like responds with such like loyalty and doesn't think twice when they ask him to do something.
But I also think he's not actively seeking out the will of the gods. He's just kind of going about his will, and then like every now and then they're like, "Wait, don't make that decision." And he's like, "All right," but if he was, I think like at a different point, he would just ask them like, "You know what? Like, I'm sick of making these bad decisions where my collateral damage is the Queen of Carthage. You know, like, so why don't you just tell me what to do from the get-go?" But he never says that.
Yeah.
So what is that? I don't know if that's
Seems
something
like
that's
he's
character.
lost. Seems like the
Or maybe
rug was
he's-
pulled under him when his city was destroyed, and he just wants like some familiarity,
Yeah.
and he's just wandering around. Oh, so if the gods prod him this way, okay, it'll get me closer, I guess. But he doesn't know what he's going to do even when he gets to where he goes.
Yeah, and the gods obviously know that he's going to do whatever they say or wherever they lead him. You know?
But why does like Dido challenge him on that? Is it because she loves him so much? Like, wouldn't she?
I feel like that's
do you think
like
if
a
she loved
woman
him,
thing.
she would be supportive.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like always, in just in real life, it's like, oh, you're gonna go hang out with your friends tonight? Oh, yeah? You don't wanna hang out with me? Yeah? Like, you know, like that's how women are. Like, that's not to like stereotype at all, but I almost feel like that's kind of, I feel like there may be a couple of reasons, but I think that's just one of them. I think she's just kind of like, well, what do you mean? but he like it's that insecurity of like not being somebody's priority.
Yeah.
So
she
then
also
I
offers him
definitely
like a sanctuary there. Like his men would be safe there. She offered them to join with them and become part of Carthage, build their new city there. It's
she almost sounds like she wants control though. Like you know what I mean in a sense because it would have been it's like her city, like it would have been her place that she invited him into for him to make his own. But then you know it overarching, it always would have been like she brought him there, like she was the one who like did all that stuff for him. So like that gives her a sense of control, I guess. And I feel like she almost feels like she doesn't have control in her life since she's lost her husband.
Mhm.
So this is almost a way of her like gaining control and also gaining a lover and everything that she wants. So it kind of was just like everything served her on like a silver platter.
Yeah, I definitely agree with her sense of control. I even thought about that when she committed suicide. I thought that she also wanted to control how she died and when she died too, because she does seem very like a very controlling person. So yeah, we talked about her suicide, and if he like really loved her or not. Do you think though that if maybe the gods hadn't moved him on, he would have stayed in Carthage, or do you think that eventually he would have realized that his original duty was to go to Italy?
I think it's completely possible for them to have ended up together. They seem to work well together. If he had just let go and settled there, I think it completely could have happened and given himself time to figure it out. But just what I think.
Yeah, when he's on this ship in the poem, he definitely more kind of, I don't want to say excited because there's no excitement in there, but he's like anticipating that his city is going to be, you know, a city that's there for 2,000 years or more. He's saying that in a good way, like, all right, now I get to have this city, my city, and when I sleep, 1,000 years at least, or 2,000 or 3,000, you know, like, so maybe Italy was just on his mind because he was distracted in Carthage, but definitely when he's on this boat, he doesn't have a woman. He's left to his own thoughts. He's like, all right, I'm gonna go to this place and I'm gonna found a city that'll be there forever. Like there's my legacy. No longer, you know, like leaving a child or a dead queen. You know, like my legacy is greater than that.
Yeah, this seems like almost the first time where he isn't really numb to what's happening. He just seems very discouraged like the entire time he's in Carthage. He's kind of just there. He's not really participating in anything. It's really a lot of Dido being like, I love you, like I want you to be here with me, and he's like, okay, yeah, here I am. So yeah, I just thought that what you were saying was interesting about how he's finally like getting a fire under him about this city, like something he's passionate about, because he really hasn't seemed passionate about that much until now.
Maybe that was part of the reason that the destiny stepped in, one for her and for him in this sense.
Definitely.
I can see that.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about the poem also, because I just think it's a very interesting like juxtaposition between his writing about Dido and his writing about Aeneas, because it just seems like even like with Dido being on the left and Aeneas being on the right, it just seems like that she's sort of like looking to him and like keeps like trying to like look to him for the love that she needs and wants, but it's just not happening, and he just like doesn't see her. There's like a wall almost between them, I think. And even like the language that Martin uses between each of them, it's just very like kind of almost bland at the beginning for Aeneas and like very wordy for Dido. Just because I think she just has so much more like feeling and emotion than he ever would for her.
Although I'm not sure if that's fair to say. Again, it's my opinion that if we had more time and not like a candle burning under him to be heading off, it could have happened. But I think in the context of this, he never got the chance to like have the exact feelings that she did.
So if you think that they had more time, he would have.
I really think it would have happened, just because it's not. They seem to work well together, and no, but I do agree that I don't think he loves her in the way that she does at this moment.
I think they both just have very different passions. So she's passionate about, finding love or, loving him, and he's very passionate about building his city. Right? And so they're both passionate, but again, towards different things.
Yeah, even the writer of this poem uses the word passion.
Yeah.
But he says her dull passion became a sharp weapon. Like dull because she's numbed. I don't know, the will of the gods. Maybe he's putting like a film in front because she's adopting these passions that's not really her own. So her dull passion becomes a sharp weapon. It's causing her to take her life, causing her to be the outrage of poetry, suicide.
Yeah, definitely. And he even, on the ship, it says he's sleeping soundly. And as she's literally dying on the horizon, he's sleeping just fine, thinking about like the wooden horse. He's not even thinking about what happened with her. He's thinking about what happened even before her, almost like she didn't happen. So actually, that's interesting too.
That stereotypes men a bit too. They say, oh yeah, she's gone. We gotta fight, but yeah, she's probably gonna be fine. Just go on with her life.
Meanwhile, she's like making meaning out of everything, turning from the city wall for the last time. Like, let me just, like all right, like she's staring at the ship going away, and then she literally is like, I picture it in my mind, like the semblance behind it if it were a movie.
Yeah.
Like she turns her for the last time, and then turns it. Where does she go? To the fire.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very dramatic. Very dramatic.
Well, he sleeps peacefully.
As he sleeps peacefully.
Yeah.
Like, you just see like panning. But this definitely even goes with the role of women and men. Like we keep bringing up, like don't mean to stereotype, but like with the role of women and men, especially like in this time, because men were like expected to be the leaders of the city and do all this great stuff, and women were kind of just expected to be there at their sides and support them.
And be there for when they're done, and it was always. I think Dido has a stronger will than most women of her time. In this, I think that
she's ruling her kingdom.
Well, yeah,
I have a question. Do you think that will bites her in the butt, so to speak? Because
it does.
But she what do you think about her? Is her suicide just because her will is so strong that she's willing to kill herself? But does that mean that she should?
Well, that's what I think it bites her in the butt because she is so strong-willed that she would kill herself to make a point. Like that is that's like you can't even do anything after that. Like you get one life, like you get a lot of opportunities for a lot of different things, but you get one life, and she didn't even think twice about just taking it, just to be like, you know what? Well, there you go.
It says Dido was fixed on dying. Like even in the beginning, she didn't even have a question about it. She was like, I'm gonna die. Okay, I'm gonna die.
Well, also I think she realizes that she's now the state that she's left, and she can't rule her people. She can't be in charge of them. She's completely gone in that regard.
Yeah, because
it's not like that's
she's
keeping her down.
She's a little
a little.
She might even almost be embarrassed because when Aeneas came, she completely stopped everything. They had a huge feast, but I think you said in class one day they had a huge feast, and they stopped all building in Carthage, and they just continued feasting. They never stopped. So I think that just she's probably even embarrassed by her stopping for Aeneas because then Aeneas leaves, and oh my gosh, now what?
For her, it's
exactly.
For her, it's like a scam. It's like an affair, but for him, it's different for gender roles. But for her, she can't return to ever having not that stigma. He can just go and he could probably get remarried.
It's a lot simpler for a man, especially in
particularly this time.
Yeah, definitely the role of women and men is taking a huge part in this. And even though Dido is the ruler of a city, I mean, she's still a woman. And she still has emotions and everything like that. Yeah. How much time do you have?
Right on time.
Right on time? Alright, well, it looks like we're out of time.